Gabriel is a PhD student in our economics for the Anthropocene project at McGill University, and he's going to talk to us about effective altruism and giving games. What affects choice? Gabriel, take it away.
Hi, I'm Gabriel, and today I'll be talking about effective altruism and giving games. This will be mostly based on an internship I did with Effective Altruism Quebec, although I'll also talk about some other research that I've done that's related to this. So what is effective altruism? Effective altruism seeks to do the most good you can do based on science and reason. They look at different potential or current problems, such as world health and poverty, animal advocacy, and existential crises. My focus was on the world health and poverty and animal advocacy side of it. Now, one aspect of effective altruism is to find effective charities to donate money to. And that is often done through an ITN framework, which asks specific questions based on importance, tractability, and neglectedness. Basically, for importance is what is the scale of the issue that is being addressed? If that was completely solved, how much better would the world be? Tractability is how solvable is a problem, and neglectedness looks at how neglected is that problem compared to other problems. In general, if something's very important, tractable, and neglected, it might be a good area to put funds in and to donate as a charity. Now, effective altruism wants to do the most good you can do, but they can't really limit themselves to things that can be scientifically and rigorously studied. As such, there's a bit of a scale. On the one side, you have things that are very time and effective in the way they are tested, like certain medical interventions. On the other side, you have things that have more uncertainty, like scientific research or a changing policy that if they work could actually have a lot of effective actions, but they are more uncertain. Now, as part of Effective Altruism Quebec, my job was to organize a set of giving games, which I would then run as workshops. I ran 6 giving games, 4 in the world of world health and poverty with 24 participants, and 2 in the world of animal advocacy with 17 participants. Now, the main idea of a giving game is that you bring people together, you select a bunch of charities, and then they have to vote for which charity should get the money. And the money is equivalent to $20 per participant. But the money does not come from participants. It comes from external donors and the organization itself. Now, giving games follows a specific methodology. First, I demonstrate a preliminary demonstration of the 3 charities, very similar, very superficial, and then there's a preliminary anonymous vote by participants. Then I explain a bit about effective altruism and effective charitable giving. I also offer more information about the charities, including their effectiveness, uncertainties, and so forth. Then I moderate a discussion among the people that are in the participants, and how they think one or the other should win the money, and then there is a final vote to determine which one gets the money. Now, we want to gather information, so we actually handed out surveys that looked at different aspects, and then we performed some chi-square tests and Fisher-Exact tests to determine significant differences between gender and charity choice, changing choices after discussions, and looked at, for those that regularly give to charities, whether there was a split between international versus national charities. Now, I won't go much into the statistics themselves, but if people are interested, they can talk about that after the presentation. Now, we also looked at the themes during the facilitated discussions. Now, all of these charities are actually considered pretty effective, and one aspect of that is that they're pretty transparent in what they do. The charities for the World Health and Poverty were Project Healthy Children, Give Directly, and Against Malaria Foundation. Now, in developed nations, staple foods like milk, pasta, rice, and so forth are fortified by micronutrients if they don't already have them. This is often not the case in low-income countries. So Project Healthy Children works with nations and organizations to try to implement systems by which they can fortify the food. They also try to give them technology to make this easier to do. People are therefore more healthy and survive better. Give Directly gives money directly to people in Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya, people that live on a single US dollar per day. They're given $1,000 and they're allowed to do whatever they want with the money, no strings attached. Give Directly then goes about a year or two later to see how they spent the money and how they are doing just in general. The Against Malaria Foundation gives insecticide-treated bed nets that people can put over the sleeping area so they're not bitten by mosquitoes that transmit malaria, at least when they're sleeping. Now, a few results here. Project Healthy Children won 3 out of 4 of the giving games, and it garnered the most votes. However, this was not statistically significant in terms of having more votes than any of the other ones. There was no significant difference between gender and charity choice. Of the 24 participants, 9 changed their views after the discussion. This was actually considered significant. One way to look at this is that the difference between those that kept their choice versus those that changed their choice was quite wide. Now, in terms of people that give regularly to charity, there was an even split between international and national charities, which is quite interesting. Now, some issues with the facilitated discussion theme. Give directly was not liked by a lot of people, basically because it was thought that people would misspend the $1,000 buying alcohol or tobacco. Give directly has looked into that, and that's not generally the case, but participants were worried about this aspect. Now, for Project Health, some people actually felt that giving $1,000 was too much for families that deal on a single dollar per day. It was thought that a smaller amount of money would have been more appealing to participants. Other people saw that the fact that they gave money and allowed people to do whatever they want with that money as one of its greatest assets. Now, for Project Healthy Children, there was the fear that the organization would work with corrupt nations, and that would be a problem. This is always a problem, and it requires a lot of vigilance and a lot of transparency. Others saw that micronutrient deficiency is less known than malaria. As such, it is more neglected and a better choice. Others saw Project Healthy Children as being more the long-term solution because healthier children lead to healthier societies. Now, I put this last one here. It didn't come up during the actual presentation, but it is something that came up after the discussion period, and I think it's something that a lot of people deal with. And basically, the idea is to say that illnesses and poverty are the symptoms of a problem and not the problem itself. We shouldn't give money to Project Healthy Children. Instead, we should fight for structural change in the nation. However, all these charities work indirectly on systemic issues and even structural issues. When you're healthier, the chances of you becoming poorer are a lot less, and as such, you can work better within a society and demand change. Similarly, giving money, as Give Directly does, to poor individuals can help them find jobs or develop jobs and fix up their houses to be more efficient. It is often said that money does not lead to greater happiness. While this may be true in certain developed nations, when it means you're coming out of a deep poverty, it can really help your peace of mind and your ability to work within a society and demand change within that society. Now, the animal advocacy giving games, I ran 2 of them with 17 participants. I picked them because there's uncertainty in some of them, and also they target animal advocacy in completely different ways. The charities were the Humane League, the Good Food Institute, and the Non-Human Rights Project. Now, the Humane League focuses on the suffering of farmed animals. Yes, essentially of farmed animals. What they do is they pressure corporations to set up standards that lead to more animal welfare rather than suffering of the farmed animals. They also educate people on the suffering of farmed animals. The Good Food Institute goes and tries to change the agriculture industry by pushing for plant-based meat, plant-based eggs, and plant-based dairy. What they do is they bring together scientists and entrepreneurs and help them start startups in this market system. Now, they also provide business, legal, strategic, and scientific support for these organizations. The Non-Human Rights Project basically goes to court on behalf of clients such as dolphins, apes, and elephants, trying to get them the rights of personhood and all the rights of persons that go with it. They basically work with high sentience animals and try to litigate in court to get these aspects to be done. Now, for the results of the giving games, the first one was a tie between the Humane League and the Good Food Institute. The second one went to the Non-Human Rights Project. However, no charity had significantly more votes. There was also no significant difference in terms of gender and charity choice, just as in the other ones. Few participants changed their views, but this was not statistically significant. And those that donate regularly to charity, there was an even split between international and national charities. Of course, the sample size here is low, only 17 people. If we get a bigger sample size, we'd be able to actually get more reliable results. Now, some of the facilitated discussion themes are good to go over. The Good Food Institute was criticized because it was felt that animal advocacy should not look for capitalist solutions. The link was made between veganism on the one hand and being anti-capitalist on the other hand. It should be noted that the Good Food Institute actually works on a whole realm of factors, and some of them would be helpful to organizations, even those that don't follow a capitalist framework. The Humane League was similarly criticized. It was felt that campaigns like the cage-free campaigns for hens does not go broadly enough. Plant-based diets should be the focus of the Humane League. Finally, the Non-Human Rights Project, it was criticized because the focus on animals with high sentience, like great apes, might not translate to other animals, such as those that suffer in farms. Also, there's the fact that the Non-Human Rights Project has yet to actually win a case for any of their clients. Now, giving games are very global in scope, so I want to bring that down to the local level, including community-based information. Now, poverty and illness overwhelmingly hurt children. A measure of water poverty could be a way to address this if it looks at health and wealth as part of it. Now, the Water Poverty Index is such a measure that could be useful in these cases. Now, I can't go into the whole makeup of the Water Poverty Index, but generally it looks at 5 components: the resource of the water itself, access to the water, the capacity to use the water, and this includes wealth, health, and nutrition and all these aspects, the different uses of the water, and the environment itself. Now, if people want more information, you can ask after the presentation. So as part of a Bridge 21 program, I set out to create general guidelines in developing a child-centered water poverty index. Now, and water poverty indices are really created based on specific communities or regions. So what we created were general guidelines to encourage other people to create child-centered water poverty indices. We did use the Bayano region in Panama as a case study, especially a workshop I did there a few years ago with an Embera community. However, we did not have enough information to create a water poverty index for the region, so the information just guided us in creating the basic ideas of how child-centered poverty index could be created. Now, in my current research, I'm looking at lots of different sites in Panama, but with a focus on the Bayano region. And while I'm taking a more historical perspective of it, I hope to also include the issues of the communities, what they have faced in the past and what they have faced in the future. Now, from animal advocacy, I'd like to go from the global to the local as well. In fact, to the Bayano region in Panama as well. One thing that I'm looking at is human-wildlife conflicts, and especially the human and social dimensions of how we interact with wildlife. I performed a survey of an Embera community in the Bayano region to understand what changes they have noticed in wildlife. More generally, I hope to look at human-wildlife changes through time, how we have seen human-wildlife as time goes on. I'm also looking to see how we can make wildlife itself a stakeholder in this entire issue. For that, I'm looking for feedback from indigenous Embera communities, because their information would be key in creating such a system. Now, a few moments to talk about the impacts on policy and education. I hope my child-centered water poverty index will encourage other people to apply child-centered water poverty indices to the locations they work in, the communities, the regions, and so forth. Now, for giving games, not only did we raise over $800 for effective charities, we also educated 41 people on effective charitable giving. I also think that the material that we created through our giving games will supplement material people use when they perform their own giving games. Hopefully that will have an impact further on than just our report. And as a final thing, I think effective altruism and giving games could be a way of teaching about ecological justice. interspecies justice, interspecies justice, intragenerational justice, and intergenerational justice. This was not the focus of my internship, but I think it would be an interesting way because there is some overlap in what effective altruists look at and what ecological justice looks at. Now, a few takeaways and a conclusion. One of the takeaways is the difficulty to get enough high quality data to get reliable results. This came through the Child-Centered Water Poverty Index and the giving games. Another issue is that most people seem unaware of effective altruism and effective charitable giving. Hopefully that will improve with time. As a conclusion, in my research, I've tried to target the people that are overwhelmingly hurt by things like poverty and illness and those other aspects. I also try to cast a wide net of people to include both non-humans and humans, and I hope to continue to do this in my current and future research. Thank you. Couple references.
Great. A clap for everyone, Gabriel. Nice job.